Tackle today, Justice Brothers from Tackle Trading on a Thanksgiving day after Black Friday, bringing you all the news, charts, and analysis so you can make some decisions today. Some of those decisions are going to revolve around technicals. Technicals are really awesome. Trading is really awesome. My brother Matt has an awesome webinar coming up. Matt, tell me about it.
Yeah, two things. Definitely register for the Precision Trading webinar, Art of Trading Options, coming up on Monday, just in a few days at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to read charts like a pro, learn how to set precision entry stops and targets. You guys are going to absolutely love it. It's going to be chock full of a bunch of education. And so if you don't understand how to read trends, patterns, support, and resistance, and then understanding how to trade the option on top of it, ooh, you're going to love this precision trading webinar coming up on Monday. So definitely sign up for that. And while I have you here, definitely check out the Tackle Trading store by going to tackletrading.com. In the storefront, we have our holiday sale season kicking off here today on Black Friday as well. We don't do this for a couple days. We do this through the month of December. But at the end of the day, December is education month. We got a great plan for YouTube coming up this month with 3 different webinars this month. But number one thing, sign up for that pro monthly special. You can get a 15-day free trial, or if you just want to do the annual program this right now, because we're in the holiday sale season, a 43% discount, $997, typically $1764. So come join Tackle Trading, dial in your entire 2025 needs from an educational perspective, and we look forward to seeing you in the December 2nd webinar called Precision Trading. And with that said, yeah, you're absolutely right, Mark. We're not a lot of news happening, but we do have some technical conversations in the market here today as you are looking at a little bit of a breakout. Now, we did expect some price movement on a very low volume day here today, and we are getting a breakout. Now, my hope is that, quite frankly, we don't run away from this today. I hope we just kind of hover around that 0.5% up here today, closing above that $600 level, which would be a confirmed breakout going into the weekend. But once again, when you're going through this extended weekend and you don't have a lot of news coming out and you don't have a lot of participation, you don't want to see the technical side get too crazy. You don't want to see too big up and you don't want to see too big down. You want to see stabilization on any degree of violation of the pattern, which we are seeing here today on the breakout. So if you close above 600, you got to call that a breakout. You got to call it a confirmation breakout. And you got to be going into the weekend thinking bulls are having a little bit of fun right now.
Yeah, technology is on my mind. You're going to talk about a news story involving semiconductors here in a second. But getting technology, this is something we've talked about since the podcast last week. And Matt, all through our programming this week, is that, hey, cyclicals, there's going to be a lot of trades this week. And tech, might be a little bit down the road in December rather than at the start of this week. Well, we get a little positive catalyst today. We get development, and so, nothing to see necessarily from a triggering standpoint today, but it's the most bullish I've been on technology all week following that catalyst event.
Well, yeah, and we might as well just talk about the stocks in the news right now because you can't just say catalyst event then not talk about the news. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at technology, and you're absolutely right, you're seeing oversized price movement. Market's up 0.5% today. Technology's up 1%. First day in a while that we're seeing relative outperformance on the technology side. Now, is that just a one-day thing where obviously there's not a lot of volume and a lot of eyes on the market, and there's a single stock story that has an impact on one space in the market, or is this something more? Well, if it is something more, that could be really good because the story is the Biden administration is looking to announce further restrictions on the sale of semiconductor equipment to China. And so when you're talking about that semiconductor equipment, you're talking about companies like Applied Materials. You're talking about companies like KLA and Lam Research, Blast from the Past, ASML, which had a couple of earnings reports, not very good, but you're starting to see relative outperformance here. ASML up 4%. Applied Materials coming off the low pretty aggressively as well. So when you're looking at the semiconductors themselves, obviously a failed breakout against the 200-day moving average again for the third time. Once again, the third time a failed breakout against the 200-day moving average on semiconductors. That's a really positive sign. And then when you look at companies like Applied Materials coming off a low point, when you look at companies like ASML coming off the low point, definitely you definitely think that maybe we're seeing a little bit of bottoming action here in the semiconductor specifically, because software companies in technology have been fantastic for the last few months. It's really been a the negative side of technology has really been the semiconductors and the semiconductor equipment companies. And a lot of that is because of the concern of, we talk about the slowing growth narrative on NVIDIA quite often, but there's obviously a dark cloud on the restrictions of selling AI, some of the most advanced technology coming out of the semiconductor areas of the market to China. And so when you're looking at the Biden administration and considering more restrictions, but there's news coming out from Bloomberg that says those restrictions are not as bad as what the market has been fearing. Usually, we talked about an alleviation event earlier this week on the geopolitical side of the equation. This is one from the economic side of the equation. And so you have some concern in semiconductors and semiconductor equipment. Number one, the slowing growth argument, which I quite frankly don't buy into. I personally have not seen CapEx spending go down in semiconductor or in the largest companies in the world looking to, really propel that AI conversation. We are in one of the most competitive environments between us and China from an AI perspective, and it is vital that we control that narrative and control that development. And so I don't buy into this slowing growth argument on the AI side of the equation. We haven't even gotten into the efficiency and increasing margin arguments that are absolutely going to come, down the road in a further phase in this AI build out. But I've never really bought into that overriding concern. But the concern with China is real, and it's had a real impact. And so if the Biden administration is looking to not go as deep in the restrictions and the regulatory environment on sales to China from a semiconductor perspective, that's going to be positive in the short term. Is it something that can develop bottoming formations, trending analysis? We're going to have to wait and see on that, and definitely come to the Traders Lounge, because we're going to dial all those spaces in. But it's a good 1 day reprieve in the space, Mark. And if we can get technology to start cooking, that's going to help the market do nothing but get better and better.
Yeah, as simple as that. We'll talk more about that throughout our programming, throughout the podcast, all of that. Matt, dollar had a weak week. Gold sold off heavily on Monday and rebounded. Those are the global markets. Those are the two big stories for me this week.
I think this is honestly one of the biggest stories that doesn't get any eyes on it outside of tackle trading. People want to talk about the market. They want to talk about the sectors. They want to talk about stocks. Stocks are getting a little bit better right now because the dollar is showing a little bit shifting volatility at the top end of a chart, which is typically a really good topping formation when it comes to the precursors of reversal analysis. Increasing volatility is one of them, but it's not the death sentence to the dollar that others might want it to be. We're going to have to see this play out, because when you look at historically here, dollar spent a good 3-4 weeks up here around 106 to 107 before it ultimately started seeing that selling behavior throughout the entire fourth quarter in 2024. Do we see a rinse and repeat of that coming into December? The hope is yes. The hope is yes, because if we do see that, everything from RSP to the SPY to IWM to the diamonds, and then obviously to preferred areas that tackle trading like gold, silver, copper, all of them start to look a little bit better when they don't have to fight the dollar. But once again, regardless of what happens on the dollar, you got to be patient on pattern development in the commodity space, which has been very sensitive to news and volatility recently. You got a symmetrical triangle in the short term on gold, where you have to violate one of the trend lines to really get an understanding of where gold wants to go in the short term. GDX has had just a terrible, terrible month. There's no doubt about it, but it's starting to form a little bit of short-term, reversal formations right around that 200-day moving average, which is not a bad thing. When you're looking at silver here / SI, I actually really like the
Yeah,
development of silver here.
whenever commodity fights for a support level, you should take notice.
Yeah, especially when it's around that 200-day moving average. Obviously, it's got overhead, but keep that on the radar when you are looking at reversal type situations. Copper's still trying to fight underneath every moving average and clinging on to life support right around that $4.06 level. We'll see if it can hold eventually. Obviously, he's got a little bit of Chinese concern here. And very quick, do you have any last thoughts on the commodity side?
Just Bitcoin's
Yeah.
chart. I was wondering what would happen in Thanksgiving. I was like,
Everybody was talking positively about Bitcoin.
yeah, and you're setting up for a breakout of 100,000 now.
Well, and I don't think you need to go too far to understand kind of what could occur here, right? S&P 500, the last 3-4 trading sessions right against that 600 took a little bit of consolidation, not a lot, a little bit of consolidation. If it does break here today, when you're looking at Bitcoin, right back into that mark. We're talking about the flag-based pattern that lasted 2 days. The recover lasted 2 days. Downward movement in prices versus upward movement in prices on Bitcoin have the exact same volatility. Now let's see if it can ultimately break and sustain that 100K level.
Yep, absolutely. What was your final thought?
Final thought, just a couple more stocks in the news very quickly. Walmart, obviously Black Friday. Walmart represents that entire space right now. Keep an eye on retail coming through Black Friday. The kind of the thought process that I'm hearing out there, and it makes a lot of sense because we've seen this all year long. Consumers aren't tapped out, but they are restricted. And so there's winners and losers in the retail space. There's been winners and losers in the retail space this year. I certainly anticipate seeing that through the Black Friday sales. So let's see what type of pattern development we can get on that following Black Friday. And then Disney's in the news a little bit as I'm begging for news stories here on a Friday following Thanksgiving, as Moana 2 is released and is doing pretty stinking good. Box office should have pretty good box office coming through the holidays because they got like 3 or 4 movies that are apparently people are wanting to go see. Sales are looking pretty good so far.
Now, listen, and after you watch Moana this weekend, be sure to register for the Precision Trading webinar. It is going to be a fantastic event. It is something that you want to circle the calendar for. Don't forget to register. You can register in the link below. But come attend. Matt's going to do a great job, and have a wonderful weekend, everyone.